Hello, everybody. My name is ChangerHero, and welcome to a Speedpaint that isn't an update video. It took us a long way to get here, but here we are. Now, for a little context, there are a few points in this video in which I accidentally worked on the piece without recording, so there may be a few skips here and there. Also, this would have been out yesterday had I not been dealing with the recovery from a mild concussion and some bruised ribs after narrowly succeeding in my black belt test. So, yay me. I also have company over, so there's that. Today, we won't be talking about what I'm drawing, rather, who I'm drawing. A wild magic caster named Random, who's a tiefling. Now, this might not exactly be Random's voice that I'm using, but, well, Random is very random, so it's very laissez-faire when it comes to the accent. So, let's get on with it. In our party, starting in a classic tavern, was that of Random, the wild magic sorcerer, who drew his power from the natural magics of the universe, taming it to his will. Though, of course, sometimes nature cannot be tamed. In the tavern, he simply acted a fool, like a clown. Nearby was a dwarven barbarian named Thorin, who was living up his victories and honor and glory with lots and lots of booze. This character was played by my dad at the table, as this was an old guard and new guard game where we played in real life. Nearby were the half-elf Hexblade Warlock, played by my friend Drake. I can't remember his character's name, as I'm terrible with names, but he was calmly at the bar, trying not to get any eyes on him. Next to him was the Dwarven Cleric. I also can't remember his name either. I think it might have been Margarine or something. I don't know. Anyway, after the four of us had had our fill of the tavern, as we had been traveling together in search of a large, wealthy dungeon full of loot and treasure, as the four of us were all broke, so it seemed a no-brainer to go work together to make our way in the world. As we took our steps out of the tavern, however, a head rolled down the street in bloody carnage. Well, it wasn't following its heels, seeing as they were nearly 60 feet away or so. Standing above them, however, were a group of 4 orcs that quickly made contact with us, and I do mean in the way of violence. The barbarian rushed the orcs, quickly bringing his great axe swiftly into them, as fast as his stubby legs could carry him. The cleric following suit with his mace, seeing as the two were much closer than the other pair. Well, about as close as the other pair, rather. The Hexblade stood between the two that ran off into the fray to fire off a few eldritch blasts and prepare his own weapon for battle. Meanwhile, Random stood at the back, sending off chill touch attacks close to the orcs to strangle the life out of them from afar. The battle was as quick as we had begun it, and just as simply, we decided to take a break afterwards, returning back to the tavern we had just taken but mere steps out of moments ago. That night was rather nice, as we recouped before we began our journey to find the dungeon that would be our monetary boon. Of course, we don't know where it is, but on our travel we came across a caravan, and in this caravan, however, we came across an old lady who decided to give us the chance to purchase cards that would tell us our fate. Now, these cards, for many of you, will probably recognize, as the deck of many things, a magical deck that bends the fate of reality based on what's drawn. Random decided to go first because, well, I decided to. That was it. I seemed interested. It was neither good, as it could be good, but it could be bad, and thus neither bad. So, his neutral demeanor, truly neutral demeanor, had no qualms about it. It ended with him losing even the money that he had paid for the money that he had not used to pay for the card, as it was vomited out into the astral plane. The cleric drew a card that allowed him to reset an event in the past or future. The barbarian drew a card that did nothing. Strangely enough, so he drew a second, which summoned an apparition of death. But as he was the summoner, it was only as powerful as he could make it, and thus his much less magical-based form allowed him to swing it back to death's door in one fell blow. However, the Hexblade Warlock drew his card, the Rogue, and soon after, we were accosted by a group of goblins sent by Green Toe after, not the party, just the Hexblade, as Rogue, the card, had rewritten fate to give him a nemesis in the form of Green Toe. We don't know anything about him, of course. We just know that at some point, the Hexblade stole from him, and he wants revenge. As such, similarly to the rogue-ish action that brought him to this point, the Hexblade fled from the combat. However, Random quickly took the lead in the initiative order, deciding, since there were so few goblins, he should cast Sleep, which, due to the fact that goblins have low health, allowed him to put 4 of the 5 goblins to sleep in one swift blow, the 5th quickly doing the same as the Hexblade and running off to go tell Green Toe just what had happened. However, unbeknownst to the party, the barbarian quickly took the heads off the sleeping goblins, revealing that as a dwarf, and a barbaric one at that, he had a hatred for goblins, and would kill nearly any he found on sight. Random, however, being a true neutral, wasn't so sure that was a good idea. Simply put, even though that these ones had done things that would allow them to have harmed us, they didn't actually do all that much harm. So he kept this in mind for later. On their persons, we found a map to their hoard, thinking as this might be a way to give us a stopgap of money. Before we reached our destination, we decided to raid it. Simply put, we were adventurers. What else were we to do? We also might find more information on this Green Toe. The dungeon itself was very... well, it had traps, it had goblins, but it also had kobolds, and a war between the goblins and the kobolds, despite how small they were, in truth. After a notorious battle against a group of kobolds led by a queen casting magic that put the Hexblade down in one blow, we came across a room where there were goblins chained up. Our neutral boy, Random, decided, well, they had done nothing to us, and we have done nothing to them. Therefore, there's nothing to say I can or cannot free them, and thus I choose to free them. But the barbarian stopped him, telling him that on our way out he would slay them, but for now he would wait to save his energy. This didn't strike Random as something they should do, seeing as, well, it wasn't very fair. It would mean that we were the aggressors, and being the aggressor tends to mean that someone will aggress us. A similar situation happened later when we found kobolds trapped as well. After a battle with the floor's boss, seeing as we only thought there was one floor, a reanimated half-troll, Random quickly realized that the dwarf would soon go about his plan to slay these beings who had done nothing. Simply put, he didn't want that to happen. So he took a gold dagger that was ornate in design and handed it to the dwarf, seeing as it would keep his attention for enough time that Random could run through the dungeon and free the goblins and the kobolds. Seeing as, well, everyone can deserve a random bout of kindness. Every once in a while, after all. Anyways, that is where I will leave this story. Again, this isn't my most amazing piece. It's like a 10-minute doodle I did while I was working on it that I decided to put a little too much work into, but I'm very glad I decided to work on this landscape, seeing as I've only done about 2 or 3 in the last 4 years, and I think for my skill, it's not too bad. Anyways, have a great day, noon, or night. ChangerHero, signing out. Peace.